Welcome everybody to CPSL's podcast series. I am Munsa Kuchi and I am the Global Sales Director at CPSL. In today's podcast, we will focus on machine translation. We will try to address the main questions many companies ask when considering the use of machine translation. Is it safe? Will it save me money? What about the quality? To cover these points, we have with us our Machine Translation Program Manager, Maria Docampo. Maria has been working as a localization engineer for several years in the translation industry, and after a Master in Translation and New Technologies, she is finally finishing her PhD in Machine Translation. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Munsa.
So, Maria, let's start by the number one question. Is it true that machine translation saves money?
To the bond in the first question, so I could answer that with a yes and with a no.
Okay, help us a little bit more.
Before I can answer your question, let me first explain what machine translation is. Everybody is using this term, but perhaps not everybody knows what machine translation actually means.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so machine translation is the process of automatically converting the content of one language into another language. This technology is provided by different companies free of charge or not. Here we can list several MT providers as Google, DeepL, Amazon, Microsoft, but also us, CPSL. We will discuss this later for sure, but to answer your question, yes, MT can save money in certain type of documents, in high resource language combination, and if the project meets certain criteria such as use case, quality level, the volume, the frequency, the type of data, and time constraints. So for example, it is commonly used in the translation of technical or legal documentation, but also in internal communications.
Okay, you've just mentioned a number of conditions or criteria, so machine translation, MT, is not appropriate for just any type of documentation. Is that so?
Correct. In these years of MT implementation, we have learned that texts with high presence of creativity, for example, marketing text, present more difficulties for the machine translation technology. Still, in some cases, it can be done. So my advice here is to ask your translation vendor for the possibility of using MT and extract the conclusions having in mind that all texts are not suitable for MT.
So, not all types of text would render good results from what you're saying. The more creative, the less likely to have a successful outcome. And your advice is to run an eligibility test, correct?
That's right. Typically, this evaluation is performed by professional post editors that score a sample machine translated text from the project according to fluency and adequacy. After this first test to see the suitability, usually another evaluation is done to see how many corrections were done during the post editing and the time spent in the task.
And how about different languages? English, French, Spanish, German, Italian, Portuguese. These seem to be used more frequently with reasonable or good success rates. But what about Chinese, Russian, Polish? Can we use MT for any language combination?
The number of languages covered by MT technology is constantly growing. Nevertheless, some languages are more difficult for MT technology and the quality is still not good enough. For example, languages with different writing and structure such as Arabic. So in other cases, some languages do not have enough data to train the technology. That is why we say that it only works for several language directions, that is, translated from a specific language to another language.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Languages such as English, German, or Spanish have more data than Galician, Irish, or Turkish. So the community of T is putting more and more effort in developing technology for low resource languages and languages such as Chinese, Korean, Arabic. So again, the part of evaluating the suitability of MT in a project is key to the success.
Okay, so there are two main factors: the similarity between languages and how commonly used a particular language combination is, because there is more data that artificial intelligence can draw from.
That's right.
Let me ask you another question. How about Google Translate? Everybody uses it. Do you recommend it?
Well, that's true. Everybody uses the free version. I would not recommend that for companies, as this free tool does not guarantee your confidentiality. This is the case for free MT providers. That is why in CPSL we have a dedicated subscription to handle this issue. Having said that, Google is just one of many MT providers, so is it good enough for you? Sometimes it can be, in other cases another MT provider offers better results. Without wanting to repeat myself, the best approach to decide which MT technology is better for my language combination and type of documentation is evaluating several MT providers and use the best. That is in fact what we do at CPSL.
The message is clear. If you want to keep your data confidential, do not use the free versions. Fine, and to finish with this block of information on the suitability of MT, let's do a recap on when should I contemplate MT and what do I need to keep in mind when asking for MT.
So, if your documentation meets the use cases, for example, if you have highly technical text with repetitive content, if you have documentation and instructions, or if you have a text of low visibility and or with a short life cycle.
What do you mean, short life cycle?
Also, if you have text for internal communication, or if you want to do data analysis, or for online customer service, and also for legal research. Then, if your project is large, or if you need the translation very urgently, then we can for sure discuss and ask for MT. I will call it having an MT strategy. When asking for MT in a translation project, you have to keep in mind that the translation company will, or at least should, assess viability of using it. It is important that you describe the type of content, the expected quality, where it's going to be published, and provide all data you have on the matter, the translation memories, the glossaries. Here, it is important to ask the translation company for transparency on the MT procedures. For example, the engine, the level of post-editing, the feedback of linguists.
You mentioned the level of post-editing. Let's talk about this for a moment. Once the text is processed through an MT engine, what happens next?
For sure. Let's go from no human intervention at all to several people editing the translation. Raw output is the direct result of the machine translation. No human reads nor corrects this outcome. It can be useful when you just need to understand a text, but you don't need it to be published. Then there is light post-editing. Light post-editing aims at making the output simply understandable. This will result in a comprehensible and accurate, but not necessarily stylistically correct. In the next level of quality, full post-editing aims at making the output also stylistically appropriate. This level of post-editing output should be accurate, comprehensible, and stylistically adequate with syntax, grammar, and punctuation. Additionally, if your documentation requires an extra eye, you should add another layer of revision to the full post-editing and ask another linguist to review the full post-editing.
Thank you, Maria. All the points you mentioned are very helpful as a guide to consider machine translation and what to expect from it. Can you share with us, as a way of an example, how CPSL handles MT projects?
Yes, CPSL has been working with MT for several years. Inside the technical department, there is a dedicated division for MT. So I will give you an example of what we do and what we have. We have an array of third-party and proprietary MT systems in several language combinations and domains, as well as generic. A few examples of customized systems trained for specific content types would be biomedical, automotive, bank and finance, localization, and technical. Then, we assure you confidentiality, so your data is safe with us. We choose the system that best suits your confidentiality requirements. Then, MT system evaluation and optimization are done periodically, combining automatic metrics and human evaluation by means of scalable tools. We have been training and selecting to work with experienced professional post-editing teams as we take a human-in-the-loop approach. We always create post-editing guidelines specific for the project. We have integration with CAT tools which allow for working with translation memories and glossaries. Obviously, post-editing jobs are evaluated periodically to make sure they meet the agreed quality standards. We have been part of the ISO 18587 from 2017, which provides the requirements for depositing machine translation output and the skills of post editors. We collaborate with the I department from the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, and finally we participate in language technology events and publications with conferences and articles.
Wow, there's a lot of information, but in a nutshell, that in CPSL there's a wide array of language combinations being treated with machine translation, with a wide variety of topics, several engines, professional teams, defined workflows, and a continuous improvement and optimization plan policy. Now, what would you say to a company who comes to CPSL asking to have machine translation applied to the translation of their documentation?
I would say to them, let's discuss your project, build an MT strategy together, suggest the workflow that best adapts to your quality requirements, and start our collaboration.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing all this knowledge and information with us. And to our listeners, if you're working in a company who have a high volume documents, are restricted by time, and want to make the best of your budget, talk to us. Even if you don't buy from us, I promise you'll get value from our conversation.